Erev Tov Rabotai, we are continuing with our Mishna Yomi, Masechet Nedarim. We are up to Perek Chet, Mishnah Daled. Today's Mishnayot should be Leilu Nishmat, Neria ben Svetlana, Ranbai, Eliyahu ben Burcha, Israelo, ben Chana bat Miriam, Menuchatam began Eden, Amen, and Avdil ben Chaim lechaim, v'derefua shelema, of Daniel Shalom ben Rosa, betor Shah Cholei Israel. The Mishnah deals with other examples of events that do not last for a set time. Adakites, if someone made a neder prohibiting an item until the fig harvest. Now the word adakites literally means until the picking, but the fig harvest is called the picking because figs are picked by hand rather than cut off the branch with tools. Ad she'akites, or until the fig harvest is. Ad she'etchilu ha'am le'achnis b'kalkalot, the item is forbidden only until the people begin to gather the figs in baskets, because that is considered the beginning of the fig harvest. The fig harvest is considered to have started only when the amount of figs that have ripened are being picked is large enough to be gathered in baskets. This is an example of the law taught in the previous Mishnah, that if someone said until the event or until the event is, when referring to an event of unknown length such as a harvest, he means only until it begins and does not include the event itself. Our Mishnah teaches when the fig harvest begins. Ad she'avor ha'kites, however, if he said that the neder should last until the fig harvest passes, meaning until after the harvest, ad she'kapelu hamakzuot, the neder remains in effect until the harvesters fold up the mats on which the figs were laid out to dry and then store the mats away, for this time is considered the end of the fig harvest. Now after the figs were picked, they were spread out on mats to dry out in the sun. Once the last of the figs were dried and collected, the mats were folded up and stored away for the next year, and the fig harvest was considered at an end. Now the Mishnah defines the beginning of the grain harvest, which was mentioned in the previous Mishnah. Ad katsir, if someone prohibited an item until the grain harvest. Ad she'atchil ha'am liktzor ktsir chitin, it is forbidden only until the people begin to reap the wheat harvest. Avalok kitsir seurim, and not until the barley harvest. The wheat harvest took place later than the barley harvest. Now the wheat crop was more important and plentiful than the barley crop in Eretz Yisrael where the Mishnah was written, so we assume that when he said the harvest, he had the wheat harvest in mind. Now the Mishnah teaches that this ruling does not apply in all places. Hakol lefi mekom nidro, everything follows the place of his neder, meaning the meaning of a term used in a neder depends on where the neder was made. Therefore, in those places where barley is the main crop, the grain harvest refers not to the wheat harvest like the Mishnah said earlier, but to the barley harvest. So his neder stays in force only until the beginning of the barley harvest. Imaya bahar, similarly, if he was on a mountain when he made the neder, bahar, the neder lasts until the time the harvest begins on the mountain. Now in the cooler mountainous areas, the harvesting season begins later than in the milder valley areas. Now even if he later went to a valley, the neder remains in force until the start of the harvest season in the mountain where he made the neder. And if he was in a valley when he made the neder, babika, the neder lasts until the harvest begins in the valley. We always assume that he meant the harvest that takes place in the area where he made his neder, and that is in the Mishnah Daled. Mishnah continues, Ad geshamim, if someone made a neder prohibiting an item until the rains, Ad shua geshamim, or until the rains are, Ad shetered riviyah shniya, the item is forbidden until the beginning of the second of the 3 periods of rainfall. In Eretz Yisrael and surrounding countries, the first rains of autumn, when the rainy season begins, are divided into 3 periods: the early rainfall, the second rainfall, and the late rainfall. In a normal year, when the rain falls on time, the second rainfall arrives on the 23rd of the month of Mar Cheshvan, so the neder lasts until it begins to rain any time from the 23rd of Mar Cheshvan. Since the rainy season has no set length, a neder that states until the rains, or even until the rains are, lasts only until the start of the rains. Like the previous Mishnah taught, when a person refers to an event of known length, he means the beginning of that event, even if he says until that event is. Of the 3 periods of rainfall, we assume that he meant the second one because it is the middle rainfall, neither very early in the season nor very late. The next time it disagrees, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel Omer, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says, Ad she'egia zmana shel reviyah, the neder lasts only until the time the second rainfall should arrive, even if rain had not yet fallen. We assume that he did not have the actual rain in mind, but rather the time when it is expected to fall. Since the rains are delayed in some years, he is unlikely to have meant the rain itself, because a person does not commit himself to a prohibition of uncertain length. Instead, he must have meant the date of the second rainfall, which is known. Therefore, according to Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, the neder ends on the 23rd of Mar Cheshvan, whether it rains then or not. Now, a dispute concerning the end of the rainy season, Achi Pasku Geshamim, if he said until the rains stop, Nisan Kulo Divrei Rabbi Meir, the neder lasts until the entire month of Nisan ends, because this is when the winter rain usually end, and these are the words of Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda Amer, but Rabbi Yehuda says, Ad Shavor Pesach, the neder lasts only until Pesach passes, meaning until the end of Pesach, because according to Rabbi Yehuda, the main rains of the winter are set to end at this time. And the Rav does tell us, V'alachak Rabbi Yehuda, the Halakha does follow the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. And in the previous part of the Mishnah, just to point out, the Rav does tell us that the Halakha follows the Tanakama, not the opinion of Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, who said that the neder lasts only until the time the second rainfall should arrive, even if rain had not yet fallen. The Halakha follows the Tanakama and not Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. Continuing in the Mishnah, every few years, a leap year is proclaimed, that meaning an extra month is added to the Jewish calendar for a total of 13 months. In the times of the Mishnah, leap years were not fixed in the calendar. Rather, the Sanhedrin, based on certain considerations, would decide at any time until the month of Nisan to proclaim a leap year. This extra month is inserted before the month of Adar. It is called Adar Rishon, the first Adar, and the next month is called Adar Sheni, the second Adar. The Mishnah defines some terms as they apply to a leap year. Konam yain sheni toem hashana. If someone said at the beginning of the year, Konam, that I will not taste wine this year, nitabra hashana, and then the year was extended, meaning it was proclaimed a leap year, so that it now has 13 months instead of 12. Asur bah ub'ibura. He is forbidden wine both during the year and its extension, meaning the extra month. When he said this year, he did not mean a normal year of 12 months, but the current year, which has 13 months. Even though he made the neder at the beginning of the year and did not know at the time that the Sanhedrin would decide to extend that year, we say that he meant the entire year, however long it turns out to be. Ad Rosh Adar, if he said until the beginning of the month of Adar, and the year was proclaimed the leap year, so that there are now 2 months of Adar. Ad Rosh Adar Rishon, the neder lasts until the beginning of the first Adar, because when a person refers to Adar without specifying which one, he means the first Adar. Ad Sof Adar, similarly, if he said until the end of Adar, Ad Sof Adar Rishon, the neder lasts until the end of the first Adar. The Mishnah now returns to the laws taught in Mishnahs 2 and 3, that when someone says until the event is, referring to an event of fixed length, he means to include the event itself. The following Tana cites an exception to his ruling. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, to this ruling. The following Tana cites an exception to this ruling. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yehuda says, Konam yain sheni toem ad Pesach. If someone said Konam, that I will not taste wine until Pesach is, and no asur el aldela Pesach, he is forbidden wine only until the first night of Pesach, and once Pesach starts, he may drink wine. Shlo nitkaven ze ad sha'ah shedech bnei adam lishtot yain, because we assume that this person intended to prohibit wine only until the time when it is the practice of people to drink wine, meaning the first night of Pesach, when it is a mitzvah to drink the 4 cups of wine. Since he is obligated to drink wine on this night, he would not have made a neder that prevents him from doing so. So although he said until Pesach is, he presumably meant to prohibit wine only until the start of Pesach. And that is the Nabotai of today's Mishna Yomi. Baruch Adonai Leolam. Amen v'amen.